Well, I apologize wholeheartedly for not doing my due diligence. But look, isn't this a lot more scripty and appropriate for fancy, fancy, fancy old textbooks? Not textbooks. History, reference, F it. Silver Spear of Goramon. That's not how they pronounced it, but I can't remember how they pronounced it because I was thinking about fonts. In the glory days of Bakshiva, before the drought, when Goramon was the greatest city in the known world, the Parek of Bakshiva decided to forge the most powerful weapon in the world to challenge the mighty white dragon. The Parek had grown greedy and bored, his treasure hold filled with the riches of the world, and he desired nothing except the one thing he could never have, the unborn daughter of the white dragon. Ew. The fairest, purest, most beautiful creature in the universe. He had asked the white dragon for her daughter's hand in marriage, but she had refused, scolding him for his insolence and warning him to keep his distance from immortals. And so the Perek sought the advice of a mighty sorcerer, the dark and cruel Eos, to learn how to kill one of the Dryad kin. The sorcerer told the Perek of a white silver of Mount Tyranny, the strongest substance in Arcadia, and how it could be forged by magic to kill even one of the kin. Sorry. The Perek orders his army. Reading, man. Reading. The Perek ordered his army to go north across the ocean and to bring back enough white silver to shape a weapon. When his men returned with the rare metal, the Perek ordered the finest blacksmith in Bakshiva to his castle, where Eos the sorcerer cast a spell to create an unholy forge. 10 days and 10 nights it took before this exhausted blacksmith could present a tall spear to his emperor. But before the spear could be used to kill one of the kin, it had to be bathed in blood. Yikes. Beheading the poor blacksmith and the soldiers who had retrieved the white silver from Mount Tyranny, the Perek's private bath was filled with their blood. As he dropped the silver spear into the red bath, watched over by Eos, a terrible scream erupted, and steam rose up in a red, foul-smelling cloud. When the steam lifted, the blood was all gone, and the spear was glowing in a deep red color. I thought it was silver. Anyway. With the terrible weapon now ready to be wielded, the Perek issued a challenge to the white dragon, to either surrender her daughter to him for marriage, or suffer a painful death at his hand. Enraged, the white dragon refused him yet again, and flew to meet the Perek, his sorcerer, and his 1,000-strong army on the green fields outside Goramon. Of the magical silver spear she knew nothing, and the Perek kept it wrapped in cloth by his side. "Bring your forces around, Perek," warned the white dragon. "If you do not, I will lay waste to them all." "I wish my men no harm," lied the Perek, "for this is between the two of us." He then rode forward, alone, and dismounted his horse, but stayed within reach of the spear. The white dragon landed before him, and she said, "You are brave to face me like this when you know you cannot harm me." Then the Perek raised a hand as if to greet her, but it was instead a sign to his sorcerer, the terrible Eos, who cast a mighty spell to hold the white dragon while the Perek drew his silver spear. The white dragon fought bravely, and she was close to escaping the sorcerer's magic, but the Perek was quick, and he thrust the magic spear into her chest. She screamed in pain and anger, and the sorcerer's spell could no longer hold her. Rising on her beautiful wings, blood pouring down on the land below, she cursed Bakshiva, her Perek and her people, for all time. Wherever the white dragon's blood fell, the land turned arid and grass became sand. The Perek sent his army to follow the white dragon and to bring back her egg, but the drought grew, and within days the once proud empire of Bakshiva was turning into a desert. Then followed a fierce storm that tore across the land for 100 days and nights, and when the dust settled, there was nothing left of Bakshiva but 2 coastal cities and a few scattered oases. Oases? It is said that in the buried ruins of a lost capital, wrapped in the arms of the Perek who dared test the immortal, rests the silver spear of Goramon. Uh, uh, guys? Guys? Where'd the volume go? What are you, doing origami on that book? Oh, no, he just sort of took it.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, goodness, it's you again. Oh, you gave me such a fright.
I've been standing here. You were just talking to me.
Could I see some more books?
Oh, certainly. What a silly question.
Okay. Let's not read that again. Book on the history of Marcuria
A
would be
book on the history of
interesting.
Marcuria would be interesting.
Ah, an extensive subject, to be sure. I will do my best.
He's gonna bring back, like, 10 volumes. You know that, right? Oh, this animation, man. You know, I love The Longest Journey, and I love Funcom, I love Ragnar Tornquist. But the one problem with this is that it is pretty
I did
wordy on the
find something
exposition.
of interest. I'll leave it here for you to read.
Which I think he himself has even said. Okay. Travels in the Northlands by Jermaine the Discoverer. The first part. In my many years as a traveling poet and bard, I have journeyed far and wide across the fair realm of Arcady, and have seen sights most people have not dreamed. I have stood on the magnificent and terrible southern capes in the midst of winter, when the storms are at their fiercest, while waves as tall as the towers of Altamont wash over my frozen body. I have witnessed the monstrous beasts that lurk in those dark and deadly waters of the south swallow brave galleons whole. Creatures the size of mountains that with a flick of a tail can touch the depths of the sea and the stars themselves. I have crossed the great ocean from north to south and from east to west, and in the course been stranded on desert islands, with no sustenance but what I could gather from the sparse vegetation, for months at a time. I have ridden the giant Elguan across not this again. Shangagriel? The wasteland, from Altabon to Monterba, and further south where the Teruk, the oasis, are few and far between. And I have seen the shifting dunes of the ruins of Goramon, precious jewel of the Bakshivan Empire, concealed for centuries by the coarse and treacherous sand. And I have journeyed far west, carried on goodwill and destiny by shadow ships, to the strange and unknown cliffs of a world unseen by most, a world of an unfamiliar tongue and customs, a world of great wonder and mysticism. I have seen all of this and more, but the fairest sights I have seen in the lands of the north, from Iread to the border mountains, from Tyran to the Bay of Fire. No sight can ever compare to dawn at Mount Tierney, looking out to the plains of Nedra, where wild stallions run free in the thousands, and to look on the city of Coruscant, the Pearl of Fire, where the boiling sun sets in the ocean beyond, the slow waves reflecting dark yellow and red as they lap slowly onto the sandy shores, is an experience truly treasured and ne'er forgotten. These lands are blessed by the Creator, shaped by men, yet wild and free and fertile, home to the greatest cities, the most precious sights, and the most cultured and civilized people in Arcady. Of all the fires I have rested my weary legs by, of all the taverns where I have learned the legends of tale spinners and memorized the songs of the bards, of all the lands where I have wandered from city to village, it is to the Northlands I return time and time again to learn evermore. Join me now, for I will evoke in you the very emotions I first experienced when visiting the sights and treasures of the northern lands. Join me, and I will surely bring you there, to the exotic mists of this blessed land, and you will pine for its rugged coast and green woods, and for its hardy people. And like me, you will never rest again until you can return to yonder shores. That's just the foreword. Marcuria. O Marcuria, thou unkempt diamond, of capitals thou art by truth the fairest. Thy counsel many seek for knowledge, kept within is centuries sought and gathered. By men wiser than the ages brought hither, by word of mouth. Marcuria, change thou not the course of war. Between thine people, diplomat, wise man, magician, all this and more. Thou hast without equal the mark of merit and virtue. Written by Jermaine Erthurin, the poet, apparently. The august capital of Ireed, the unified country Marcuria, lies in the hardy southern coast of the Northlands, halfway between Tyrone and Coruscant. It is a port of call for merchants, traders, adventurers, and pilgrims from all 4 continents, a place of commerce and diplomacy for millions of humans and other species. Ireed is a strong and proud land perched between the plains of Nedra to the north, the land of Tyrone to the west, the Great Sea to the south, and the forests of the Northlands to the east, and inhabited by humans, Dolmari, Tyrone, Mole People, and Vinar? I thought it was Vinar with an A. Ireed was formed after Marcuria emerged as a major center for diplomacy and trade, and became the banner under which the surrounding lands united as one. Ireed is a democracy, currently led by the Chief Council of the Ireed Flag, Lord Igvin Dellin, the High Council, composed of the ministers who govern by representation, resides in the Marcurian Hall of Assembly, flanked by the palace and the barracks. The Ireedese are traditionalists, and their form of government has barely changed over the last few millennia. In High Tongue, Ireed means unification, or assembly. Marcuria is one of the largest cities of Arcadia, the capital of Ireed, and a center for trade, diplomacy, and cultural diversity. Populated by a large variety of races, from human to Vinar, Marcuria has grown from its origins as the birthplace of humanity to a city for all Arcadians, the hub of the civilized world. Founded 20,000 years ago, wow, at the shore of the then unconquerable ocean, it is the first known permanent settlement of the emerging human race. Initially left to its own devices by more developed races, Marcuria grew large and fat and wealthy. With newfound confidence, it passed through a period of expansion, which gained it a reputation as a merciless aggressor, which soon brought the violent attention from the Tyrant in the west and the Dolmari in the north. After years of war, Marcuria was decimated and subsequently rebuilt with sufficient reinforcements to weather attacks from both sea and land. Peaceful times followed. Whereupon Marcuria settled into the role it has in today's Arcadia. Although all surrounding areas fall under its jurisdiction, there is sufficient self-governing and few central taxes to appease all but the most disgruntled. The huge areas of farmland around the city benefit from the well-kept roads, market, and the busy export to other lands. Nearby villages benefit from the military might of Marcuria, protecting them against roving barbarians and tyrant armies. And Marcuria also provides the people of the Northlands with one of the best and busiest ports in Arcadia, allowing travel to distant destinations around the world. So I learned nothing. How about you?
Are you done? Let me take that back for you.
Okay. Let's keep going. Oh, come on.
Goodness, it's...
Yeah.
Could I
Books?
see some more?
Oh, certainly.
Yes. Okay. I'd like to read some Arcadian folk tales.
I'd like to read some Arcadian folk tales.
Why the hell not?
A favored topic of mine.
Aw.
I have just what you're looking for.
He would be into folk tales.
I did find something of interest.
Thank you.
I look like a serving maid.
I know you do. You look fine, April. Okay. Let's get some folk tales up in her. Okay. Sadra, the faithful wife. Sadra was married to a brute of a man named Care. He was a bully who drank, cursed, gambled, and beat up his wife when he'd lost coins at the cup stable. Still, Sadra treated Care with respect and care. She fed him when he was hungry, she made his bed and washed his back, and she lay down with him when he told her to. She never complained of her hardships to anyone, even though some days she woke up with bruises all over her body. Despite her husband's treatment, Sadra was a beautiful woman, with lovely dark hair and green eyes, and men would admire her when she went to the market for food or the town. the town well for water. But none dared approach her, fearing her dangerous husband more than they admired her beauty and grace. People would say, "Poor Sadra, she deserves better than what she has. She's so good and patient, even though her husband mistreats her every day." But no one was willing to do anything to free her from her husband, as they all feared his wrath. "She chooses her own path," they would say, "and it is not our duty to interfere." Okay. Then one day, a tall and handsome prince rode into town to visit with the elder council. When he spotted Sadra carrying 2 heavy buckets from the well to her home on the edge of town, he was taken with her beauty and youth, and he jumped down from his horse to help her carry buckets home. On the way, he offered Sadra courtship, but when told she was already married, he bowed respectfully and excused himself for acting inappropriately. That night, Sadra's husband heard about the prince helping his wife, and after striking her down for letting royalty interfere with her duties, he strode drunkenly, for he had already had his usual fill of dark ale, towards the tavern where the prince and his cohorts were staying. When Kare arrived at the tavern, the prince was eating dinner, and when told if Sadra's husband was there to see him, the prince stood and waved the man closer. "I must congratulate you on your good taste in marriage," said the prince, "for your wife is the most beautiful and good-hearted woman I have ever met." And then he offered Kare a seat and a tall mug of ale. But the angry husband did not appreciate the prince's advances, and he drew a sword and lunged at the prince before his guards could react. The prince was quick and lucky to avoid certain death, and before Kare could make a second strike, the prince had recovered his sword from where it stood by the wall, and stood ready to fight the brute. "Leave him be," called the prince, when his guards drew arms and ran to protect their liege. "This is between him and me." Smiling briefly, he nodded his head to Kare and stood to attention. Obviously, his skill with the sword was formidable. Kare, a coward at heart, knew that if he fought fairly he would surely die, and he sheathed his sword but loosened the knife he had tucked up his long sleeve. "My pardon, prince," said Kare. "My love for my wife is such that I am blinded by jealousy. I offer you friendship and apologies." He extended an open hand to the prince and smiled a broad lizard smile. The prince, unaware of Kare's mistreatment of his faithful wife, smiled back, put down his sword, and extended his own hand. "Your apology is accepted, sir." Then suddenly, Kare's knife was in his hand and moving in a blur toward the prince's exposed throat. Had it not been for the quick eye of the nearby guard, who with the broadside of his sword struck Kare on the side of his head, the prince would have been dead. The knife carved a deep scar on the prince's shoulder, but it did no serious harm. Kare was taken away to the town prison to be judged when the sun rose. His crime was surely punishable by death, especially if Sadra would testify to his cruelty in front of the judge. Free of Kare's tyranny, the townspeople now spoke of Sadra's suffering by her husband's hand, but Sadra would not herself, even now, speak against her husband. And instead of being sentenced to death, Kare was sent away to work the king's mines for 25 years. Taken with her faithfulness, the prince yet again offered Sadra courtship, but again Sadra declined, for she was still a married woman. Then, 1 year later, Kare attempted to escape the king's mines by killing 2 guards and climbing the walls, but he was shot down with an arrow and died in agony and disgrace. Again, the prince visited Sadra's town, bringing condolences and a renewed offer of courtship, and this time Sadra agreed. Months later, the prince and Sadra were married in a glorious ceremony, and when the old king died, the prince became regent, and Sadra his queen. She was as good a queen as the land had ever seen, and she was loved dearly until the day she died, and her funeral was the grandest and most tearful in memory. Okay. So this is very much a Cinderella story, only with domestic abuse involved. More domestic abuse. Pro tip, guys. This is a bad story. It's a bad moral. Do not allow people to mistreat you. You do not mistreat people. It's, not good. It is vanishingly unlikely that a prince will come and save anyone from this kind of situation. So, yeah. This is a bad story. Bad story. This is, not good. Well, let's keep going. The Children of the Lake. There was a village by a lake where no couple had borne a child for 20 years. The villagers were desperate, for without children the village would wither and die, and they turned to their god for help. Just as a point, shouldn't it actually be B-O-U-R-N there? Like born, to come forth? Honest, I'm not 100% sure, but that looks wrong to me. Anyway, the next morning, 50 young children rose out of the misty lake and wandered onto the shores, much to the joy of the childless women. "We are yours," said one of the children, "as long as you remember one thing. You are never to fish from this lake again. Instead, you must learn to hunt in the forest and live off the land." The villagers agreed, though they were worried they might go hungry since they were used to catching and eating fish from the lake. But it didn't take long before they had taught themselves to hunt and grow wheat and potatoes in the fields. 18 years passed, and then one day, an old man grew tired of rabbits and deer and potatoes and bread, and he longed to catch a big fish and cook it over a sizzling fire. He took his boat out to where the villagers would not see him, and he sank his line. Almost immediately he caught a large trout, but as he was rowing back to shore, he saw the children of the lake wander from their homes back into the dark waters from whence they came. Their mothers called for them, tried to hold on to them, begged them not to leave, but they would not speak, and one by one they disappeared into the lake. The old fisherman then saw, as the children sank into the murky waters, how they turned into large fish and sped off into the deep. He was shameful then, and dropped his catch back into the water, but it was too late, and the village would forever more remain childless. Moral of the story. Don't be a dick to people who are offering you magic.
Are you done? Let me take that back for you.
That one I can get behind. Whew, okay. This again.
Could I see?
Oh, sir.
Okay. That was interesting. Okay. So, when she says I'd like to read some more Arcadian folktales, she really just means to get the same book
I'd like
again,
to
right?
read some more Arcadian folktales.
Did I mention how much I like folktales? Just a minute.
I like folktales too. Maybe he actually is getting us different ones. That would be fun.
I did find something.
Thank you. Nope, they're just the same. Oh, fine.
Are you...
There.
Could I see?
Oh, sir.
Okay. So you've read all this, so now we're just sort of looking for information about the disc.
I'm looking for some information, but I'm not sure which book to ask for.
No matter. I know a great deal about most of the books in here. What topic intrigues you?
It's like working at GameStop. You have to know, like, every single game in the entire store, or you're not a good employee. Anyway. Oh, we've got three options. Okay. Let's start from the top.
I've heard rumors about mermen who live beneath the Sea of Songs, and I'd like to find out more about them.
Mermen in the Sea of Songs. Let me see what I can find, yes?
I'm glad I found that information before I got here. This is gonna be a long video, guys. I mean, I guess you already know that, because if you're watching it on YouTube, then it shows you the length. But this is when I'm realizing it's gonna be a long video.
I did find something of interest.
Okay. Merum, also mermen, merpeople, Marians. A magical people who reside in the depths of the great ocean and other seas. Little contact has been made with the Merum, who are believed to have been quite numerous in the past, but are now dwindling in numbers. Confirmed location of the Merum cities is between the Briston Atoll and Gaian, centering on the Sea of Songs. Legend of mermen, merpeople, Marians, are rampant among sailors. These stories portray the Merim in a grotesque and violent light, betraying the truth of a largely peaceful people. Although not much is known about the Merim, their religion apparently centers around the belief of a benevolent god who lives in the immense depths of the great ocean, and who brought the Merim to Earth from a place distant and wonderful. Not much is known about the Merim, I guess. So that book was definitely like, they're chill dudes. Benevolent god. Benevolent and bloodthirsty. Not so much the same word. Stop poking him.
Could I... I'm looking...
Okay. Do you want to learn about dragons or the disc first? Let's do dragons.
I'd like to learn more about dragons, about the Dragkin.
Stop saying dragons, by the way.
Oh, yes. We have some wonderful books on that topic. Stay here.
Books plural? Seriously, April, you need to stop using these Stark words. They'll confuse people. Or worse, insult people. Like, Tobias was not happy that you said dragons. And he knows about Stark. Though. Minstrom Yeren? I don't know what his name is. Seemed, I guess, okay with it, but... You gotta watch your tact.
Yeah,
I get it.
I look like a serving maid.
Honey. Secrets of the Dryakin by Minstrom Eliak. Forward. The Dryakin are known by many names throughout the Twin Worlds. Oh, we're talking about Twin Worlds here. In All Tongue, they are often referred to as Draken. In some variations of Low Tongue, Draken. In the Southlands, the word Dragik refers specifically to the winged lizard shape traditionally associated with the kin. In Urhad, the eternal spirits of the kin are called simply Drak, regardless of their current shape. In Stark, most cultures refer to the kin as dragon. Dragone. Even though this usually refers only to the winged lizard-like shape and not to the spirit inhabiting the shape. In fact, while in Arcadia, the kin are respected and revered as internal spirits with great significance in the balance and the all. In Stark, the kin are mostly creatures of mythology and fairy tales. However, in some Stark legends and scriptures, most notably the Christian Bible, the name dragon is associated with the forces of evil, and thus the religious connotations do seem to have carried over in a somewhat distorted form. Who, or what, are the Dryakin? Why not ask who is the creator, or what is the all? Questions thus asked will remain in perpetuity unanswered, for they are in truth unanswerable. To condense all knowledge of the Creator into one answer is futile, as is any attempts to define the all without describing every single element that makes up the all. So also with the Dryakin. We cannot answer who is the kin or what is the kin, but we can provide some answers to the simpler questions. The questions that deal with what we see and hear and feel, and what we have been told by the kin themselves. Answers that, together, may give us, if only the faintest hints of the whole truth, then at least some indication of who or what the Dryakin are. Born of the emptiness between the stars, reads the 11th scripture of the balance, the scripture of time. Shaped in unison with the all, part of the all, and yet outside the all. Drakekin, note the ancient high tongue variation of Dryakin. Why so many variations and interpretations of the Dryakin from culture to culture? The kin have always been shrouded in mystery, and from mystery rises legend and myth. The kin seem content to be seen as nothing but tall tales and figments of a bard's fertile imagination.
Are you done?
So... I don't know. Let's just keep reading.
Could I see...
Oh, sir.
I'm looking...
No.
Okay, let's talk about the disc.
I need to find out which 4 magical people of Arcadia were given a piece of the stone disc that serves as the key to the Guardian's realm.
The stone disc of the balance, yes? Yes. There could possibly be something on that in Let me check. Just one moment.
Seems like there should be a lot talking about this. I mean, it's kind of important. This animation just does not speed up.
I did find some.
Thank you. Okay. Chapter 16 in the 8th scripture, the scripture of breaking. Regarding the disc of the balance and the events that came about when the disc was broken. The scriptures tell us that the disc was kept in the Enclave for many thousands of years, safely guarded from any threat by the respect held by every man and woman for the authority of the fathers. But with dissent came disobedience, and disobedience brought immorality, and immorality begot theft. Tyran's soldiers, aided by sentinel traitors, attempted to make away with the disc, but were thwarted by the White of the Kin herself, intervening, although forbidden to do so, on behalf of the fathers. The disc was brought safely back to the Enclave, but the threat would linger in the minds of the Minstrom and the Vestrum. So it became that the disc was melted in the forge of a dragon's mouth, shaped into the elements of 4 magical people, and given to these respective people for safekeeping until such a time where it was decreed that the disc should once more be whole. 1 stone to the gentle souls that sing in the dark and shape the earth between their toes. 1 stone to the watcher of the woods, the ones who are outside. 1 stone to the 2 that make one of air and sea, and 1 stone to the keepers of the dark flame, the eternally dark, the mariners. When the time comes for the disc to be whole again, 1 person will make a journey to the 4 who hold the pieces, and the pieces will be given willingly, because there will be no doubt to the righteousness of this person. Okay. I get it. You've got 4 stones. You put the 4 stones in the things upstairs. With the 4 stones of the 4 fist size hole, and they go through the little rifts, and then they create the disc in the center. I get it. So we're not actually looking for a disc right now, we're looking for stones. But seriously, what? Gentle souls that sing in the dark and shape the earth between their toes, watchers of the woods, the 2 that make one of air and sea, and the keepers of the dark flame, the eternally dark, the mariners. That sounds like the sea people, though the Minstrom also talked about, like the dark people having a library, so maybe the dark people are mermen. I don't know. But, hope we're righteous enough.
Are you done?
Okay. So, in sum, let's see. What books did we read? Whoop.
Oh,
Yes, you're confused. Okay. So, in sum, Silver Spear of Goromon was basically a guy was a complete jerk, tried to kill the Dryadkin, or the white of the Dryadkin, and just killed a bunch of people, was a total dick about it, died, and the city was cursed forever to be barren and desert-like and awful. Theoretically, the spear is on his body. The history book of Marcuria didn't really say anything. It was just Marcuria was a city. It's where humans sort of gathered. And yeah, now it's like this hub of trading and stuff. Arcadian folktales had Cinderella and that thing about if someone offers you the answer to your greatest prayers and they just say, but seriously, just don't do this one thing. Just don't do that one thing.
I'm looking.
And then, so the mermen, not actually evil. They're god, not actually bloodthirsty. Just benevolent. They're pretty chill. The stone disc was split in 4, into 4 like gems, jewels, crystals, things, and given to like a bunch of things that sounded really elemental, one of which was possibly the mer people. And the Dryadkin are basically, it's not that they're dragons as we think of them with the wings and the flying, but they're the spirits sort of eternal spirits that like inhabit those forms generally. And I don't know, judging by the fact that that one dude with the spear wanted to marry the child, I think they can have human forms. But I would probably choose the dragon form just because it's more intimidating, more appropriate for a being of such presence. So I think that's about all we learned, which was probably not worth 35 minutes.
I forget, but thanks anyway.
I know how it is. I forget things all the time. I even forgot my own name once. Couldn't remember it for a whole week, and then someone called for me, and I couldn't find him. Strangest thing.
What? That's not what the subtitles said. But what he said makes a lot more sense. That is odd. I don't feel like reading anymore.
Actually, I don't feel like reading right now.
Don't feel like...
Oh,
Very well,
What?
though it is the strangest thing I've heard in a while. How can you not feel like reading?
you don't understand much about modern culture, do you?
I'll see you later.
Yes, good.
Okay. I don't know if there's anything else. There are stairs going down, so we can explore down here. Right, the other thing is that the disc thing upstairs can be used probably to, once you get all the elements, forge them back together into a disc. So that's about all we learned. I guess we'll go down the stairs in the next video. See what happens. See you then.